Ever had one of those moments where you're scrolling through your social media feed and suddenly you're not sure if what you're seeing is real or fake? Well, buckle up, because we're about to dive into a world where that line gets even blurrier and way more serious. Picture this. You're chilling at home, maybe binging your favorite show, when suddenly your phone buzzes. It's a news alert about AI being used to create fake images. No big deal, right? We've all seen those silly face swap apps. But what if I told you that this technology is being used for something far more sinister? We're talking about AI-generated child sexual abuse material? Yeah, I know, it's heavy stuff. But stick with me because this is something we all need to know about. So there's this team of digital detectives from Anglia Ruskin University, Dr. Deanna Davey and Professor Sam Lundrigan. They spent a whole year poking around in the dark corners of the internet, kind of like those crime scene investigators on TV, but for the digital world. And what they found? Well, it's like something straight out of a Black Mirror episode. You know how Silicon Valley is always buzzing with the next big tech innovation? Well, imagine an evil twin of that, hidden away in the shadowy alleys of the internet. That's what these researchers stumbled upon. A whole ecosystem of people using AI to create this horrific content. It's like they've set up their own twisted version of a tech startup, complete with collaboration, skill sharing, and even their own lingo. Creepy, right? Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, if it's AI generated, doesn't that mean no real kids are involved? And that's exactly the kind of thinking that's making this problem even trickier to tackle. Some folks have convinced themselves that because these images are artificially created, they're not really hurting anyone. But hold that thought, because we're about to unpack why that idea is as wrong as pineapple on pizza. Sorry, pineapple pizza lovers. This whole situation is like we've stumbled upon a digital Pandora's box. And now that it's open, we're all scrambling to figure out how to deal with what's inside. It's not just about catching bad guys anymore. It's about understanding and tackling a whole new frontier of online exploitation. So, grab your favorite beverage, get comfy, and let's dive into this digital rabbit hole together. Trust me, by the end of this, you'll be looking at your smartphone in a whole new light. Okay, let's address the elephant in the room, or should I say, the AI in the room. You might be thinking, if these images are just made by computers, surely no one's getting hurt, right? Well, hold on to your hats, because we're about to unravel this misconception faster than you can say artificial intelligence. Imagine this. You're at a funhouse, standing in front of one of those wacky mirrors that distort your image. But instead of just making you look taller or shorter, this mirror shows a version of you doing things you'd never do in real life. Creepy, right? Now imagine that image being shared all over the internet. That's kind of what we're dealing with here, but on a much more serious and harmful scale. Here's where it gets wild. Creating these AI images isn't like playing The Sims. Often, the people making this stuff are using real photos of children as reference points. It's like they're building a Frankenstein's monster of abuse, piecing together parts of real kids' images to create something artificial but no less harmful. Yikes! And get this. The more these AI-generated images float around, the more they risk desensitizing people to the horrors of child exploitation. It's like slowly turning up the heat on a pot of water. Before you know it, you're in boiling territory, and that's exactly what's happening with people's perception of this issue. But wait, there's more. I feel like an infomercial host, but for a much darker product. These AI-generated images aren't just sitting there doing nothing. They're fueling demand for more extreme content. It's like a twisted version of Moore's Law. You know, that thing about computer processing power doubling every couple of years? Well, in this case, it's the intensity and explicitness of the content that's escalating. Now let's talk about the domino effect. Picture a row of dominoes, each one representing a step from viewing AI-generated content to potentially seeking real-world victims. It's a chilling progression that's keeping law enforcement and child protection agencies up at night. Here's a mind-bender for you. Some of these offenders actually believe that because they're not directly abusing a child, their actions are somehow less harmful, But that's like saying it's okay to fan the flames as long as you're not the one who lit the match. In reality, every interaction with this material, AI generated or not, is another brick in the wall of a culture that puts real children at risk. So, the next time someone tries to argue that AI-generated abuse material is a victimless crime, you can hit them with these facts faster than an AI can generate an image. Because let's face it, in this digital age, what happens in the virtual world doesn't always stay in the virtual world. All right, folks, strap in because we're about to take a deep dive into the dark side of tech innovation. You know how we usually get excited about the latest app or gadget? Well, imagine all that creativity and tech savvy being used for the absolute worst purpose possible. That's what we're dealing with here. Picture this, a bizarro world version of a Silicon Valley startup, where instead of creating the next big social media platform, the goal is to push the boundaries of AI for the most nefarious purposes imaginable. It's like watching the evil twin of Mark Zuckerberg at work. But instead of connecting people, they're exploiting the most vulnerable. These aren't just lone wolves working in their mom's basements. No, we're talking about a disturbingly organized community. They're sharing knowledge like they're preparing for some twisted hackathon. It's as if they've created their own dark academia, complete with tutorials, peer reviews, and even their own specialized lingo. Can you imagine a more perverse use of collaboration? Let's break down their playbook, shall we? First up, we've got their learning and skill development. These digital predators are treating their craft like it's a full-time job. They're poring over online guides and tutorial videos, experimenting with AI tools like they're testing new Snapchat filters. But instead of dog ears and flower crowns, they're creating something far more sinister. And get this, they've even set up feedback loops, critiquing each other's work like it's some twisted art class. Hey, great job on the lighting in that horrific image. It's enough to make your skin crawl, right? But wait, there's more. I feel like I'm hosting the world's most disturbing infomercial. The dark web forums these offenders frequent are like the evil twin of Stack Overflow. They're sharing advice, troubleshooting problems, and even developing their own specialized lingo. It's like they're building their own secret language, a code to shield their activities from prying eyes. Now, here's a fact that might make you want to throw your computer out the window. These offenders are exploiting existing content to fuel their AI-generated nightmares. They're using real images as reference material, mimicking styles, and even building databases to train their AI models. It's like they're creating a Frankenstein's monster of exploitation, stitching together pieces of innocence to create something truly horrifying. And get this, some of these offenders actually refer to themselves as artists. I know, right? It's like calling a burglar an uninvited house guest. It's a chilling reminder of how they've normalized their behavior within their community. They're not just sharing techniques. They're creating a culture, a shared identity built around the exploitation of children. Now, you might be thinking, but if these images are AI generated, they're not real, right? So it's not as bad. Oh, if only it were that simple. Each of these images, whether AI generated or not, represents a real threat to child safety. It's not just pixels on a screen, it's a stepping stone towards real-world harm. It's like saying that planning a bank heist in a video game is harmless. Except in this case, the consequences are unimaginably dire. As we've seen, these digital predators are constantly evolving their tactics. They're leveling up their game faster than a kid with a new PlayStation. And just like in a video game, each new level brings more challenges, but in this case, for those trying to stop them. Okay, remember how in sci-fi movies, AI often evolves beyond its creator's control? Well, we're facing a real-world version of that nightmare. But instead of killer robots, we're dealing with an escalating cycle of digital abuse. It's like we're living in the prequel to The Terminator. But the threat isn't from the future. It's happening right now in the dark corners of the internet. Imagine if every time you leveled up in a game, the real world around you became more dangerous. That's the kind of escalation we're facing here. But instead of power-ups and boss battles, We're talking about a disturbing progression from what offenders call softcore to hardcore imagery. It's like watching a twisted speedrun, where the goal isn't to finish the game faster, but to create increasingly explicit and harmful content. Here's where it gets really scary. As offenders hone their skills, the AI-generated images are becoming more realistic. It's like watching graphics improve from 8-bit to 4K. Except in this case, each pixel of improvement represents a step closer to potential real-world harm. It's enough to make you want to go back to the days of flip phones and dial-up internet, isn't it? Now, you might be thinking, surely this is just a small group of tech-savvy criminals, right? Well, hold on to your keyboards. Because here's a shocking fact. The ease of using AI tools is lowering the barriers to entry for potential offenders. It's like giving everyone cheat codes to skip straight to the most dangerous levels. Suddenly, you don't need to be a coding genius to create this stuff. And that's terrifying. But wait, there's more. I feel like I'm stuck in an infomercial from hell. Experts are worried that engaging with AI-generated content could be a gateway to more severe forms of abuse. It's like how they say video games don't make you violent. But in this case, the game is designed to normalize and escalate harmful behaviors. It's a digital playground that could be reinforcing the worst impulses and potentially escalating to real-world abuse. And let's talk about the long-term consequences. It's like we're facing a boss battle we're not prepared for. We're looking at an increased risk of victimization as the line between virtual and real blurs. The psychological impact on survivors of abuse is amplified when they know AI versions of their trauma could be circulating endlessly. And for those working to protect children, it's like trying to fight an enemy that keeps respawning with new abilities. Here's a mind-bender for you. Some might think that because these images are AI-generated, they're somehow less harmful. But that's like saying a simulated fire can't cause real burns. The truth is, every AI-generated image contributes to a culture of exploitation that puts real children at risk. It's like each image is a brick in a wall that's getting higher and harder to tear down. What if I told you that this isn't just a problem for law enforcement or tech companies? It's a societal issue that requires all of us to level up our awareness and action. We need to think of it like a multiplayer game where every player has a crucial role in protecting the most vulnerable. It's time to put on our digital armor and join the fight. As we've seen, the threat is evolving faster than a speedrunner breaking world records. But who's trying to put the brakes on this runaway AI train? Let's shift gears and look at the challenges facing those on the front lines of this digital battle.